Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to yet another episode of Beyond the Present podcast with Daniel Mulligan. How's it going, Dan?
And man, buddy, how are you? How's it going? Going to be here with you for yet another great episode. Life is amazing, and we're seeing how the situation is being developed as we speak regarding the whole coronavirus thing. So we're going to hopefully see how things go. But for now, we are ready for action, and everything is okay.
Amazing. Okay, let's talk about it then. Let's dive in. It's been a few weeks since last we talked about coronavirus and the impacts on the global scale, how countries are handling it and whatnot. And we thought that maybe it's a good time to actually recapture that and see how things have progressed, what things have been done since, and what things are looking at this point on forward. So let's just dive in and give us your perspective. What do you think has been done and accomplished for the better, and what has been done and accomplished for the worse? Do you have any general ideas right off the bat?
That's right. Well, first of all, I'm glad that the situation is getting a little bit better globally. Of course, there are certain exceptions. Certain countries still are basically at a major risk here. We're talking about countries like Brazil, which recently got ahead of Russia as the second biggest hotspot of the virus in the world. Of course, Russia's not doing well either. Unfortunately, the numbers are going up, and the increase since May 25th has been about 25%. So by the time this show goes on, of course, numbers are going to be much higher. But certainly, certain countries have had certain problems with this issue. But from my point of view, I think that it's now more under control. Certain amount of traveling and freedom of movement is being restored in some parts of the world, mainly in the European Union. Of course, international travel is still at a halt, and many airliners have suffered tremendously from the situation. But as we're approaching the summer season, obviously it's going to be a little bit easier, even though temperature has been told to not have a very direct impact on infection rates, as we've seen recently. For example, Qatar now has one of the highest growth in number of infections in one day, even though it's one of the hottest places in the world right now. Right. So temperature alone is not necessarily going to be a factor when it comes to the amount of infection being spread around. But ultimately, a bit easier because at least there will be fewer people who suffer from major symptoms because of improved immunity. But ultimately, right now, we are still not at a point where we can say the crisis is over. Of course, it's not over. And many countries that are now being reopened are told that they will have a second wave. This has been told by many experts. And what we are seeing right now is that people are now more aware of it. But the good news that I've recently heard is that people are now being more aware of the facts, because I really believe that this coronavirus thing is there are two major theories. Neither could be fully proven. One is that the whole issue was created for a political purpose. The other one, of course, is that it's being abused as a political tool. We don't know what it is, but as of today, as we're recording this podcast, we heard that this issue is directly linked to certain major political events of the year, including, of course, the U.S. election and the recent, Trump's tweet, which was actually for the first time, it's in the history of the United States of America, where a president's tweet or a public claim is being somehow thought to be inaccurate by a third party, which is Twitter right now. Maybe you heard about this matter. And of course, this was about the coronavirus, because as we know, the coronavirus itself does not have any vaccine as of yet. And we have a U.S. election coming up, of course, this November. So a lot of people are saying that a second wave is supposed to hit around the same time, which means that it's much better to go for the election using in-mail ballots. So basically, the ballots are sent to the homes. People vote in their homes, and then they mail it back. And of course, and Trump made a huge big deal about this. Like, no, your guys are using this. This is trying to meddle with the election and all of. This is all rigged. Obviously, this is just a claim that everybody would do in this situation because he's losing. But in reality speaking, we are seeing that this issue is now becoming a lot more political. Now, I personally have discussed this earlier on social media, with a couple of my posts, that this happened at this time. I'm not going to state that my opinion about the whole crisis is necessarily true, because I, as of now, do not have, or do not neither have the permission nor have the ability to fully articulate why basically this issue has been basically politicized. But in reality speaking, this is currently, in a direction that we think is ideal for a political campaign, because we have a, let's just say and we have a lot of people who are supposedly the basically hidden stealth carriers of the virus, many people who do not have any symptoms. So this is a perfect fear campaign that can change a lot of things. Now, personally, given the fact that I'm a liberal and I'm on the side of the Democrats, of course, I am kind of happy about the direction where it's headed, because it might actually substantially increase the likelihood of Joe Biden becoming the 46th president of the United States. But in reality, still, as a liberal, we have to understand that people cannot be used as political tools. That's just against human rights. So am I happy that the current changes in world politics because of the coronavirus is perhaps going to kick Trump out of the White House? Yes, I'm happy about this matter for sure. Am I happy that if someday it is publicly announced that this was all just a political trick to kick Trump out of the White House and establish a new world order, then I think that people are now being used. Average people are being used as political tools. Many elderly have died because of this issue. And of course, don't mention about all the businesses that have now gone bankrupt because of a virus that is not even that dangerous, basically, right? And the other point, of course, was recently was the announcement about the real basically death rate of the virus COVID-19 as opposed to, let's say, flu. Because if you remember, we had a podcast earlier, Pujix, and you mentioned that the death rate is substantially higher than the flu, basically. But now, after the research in the past 5 to 6 months, now it is proven that if you take into consideration the entire denominator, basically, which is those who are asymptomatic, those who have no symptoms, basically those who have very light symptoms, when you put it all together and you count the actual rate of fatality and death rate of this virus, it actually is in the flu range. It's very close to the flu. And this simply proves what I mentioned earlier on one of our previous programs, that this is just a fear campaign designed to spread nothing but fear. And now, again, I'm not personally unhappy about all of this. Again, I'm not happy about the fact that a lot of businesses around the world have now been hurt because of this. But the direction that is clearly we're headed right now, because of the coronavirus, is definitely going to make some major political changes in the world, basically. And is this being used as a political tool? Well, we have to wait until the end of the election. But things look like it, and we have to wait to see how it goes, basically. But these are what I've heard so far. Now, of course, the statistics, Pooja, please let me know about some of these details right now. So what are the situations, what are the developments from your point of view, and based on what you've heard so far?
Well, I mean, yeah, it's a tough egg to crack. I mean, from one point, so I'm not sure about what study you're talking about, but I do agree with you that, in my opinion, from what I'm looking at and where I'm seeing the data and all the research being done that I'm familiar with, that the death rate and the lethality of this thing is much, much lower than we thought it was. Maybe not lower than flu, maybe slightly higher, but not that much higher. It seems that it has some damage for the people who go into critical condition and return. So there's a little bit of that, obviously. So it makes it a little bit, I think, more dangerous than flu overall. But from where I'm standing is that, yeah, it's not as bad as we thought, which is good news, obviously.
Exactly. Exactly.
But and on the other hand, it's from the perspective of, okay, who's at fault? Is it was it created, whether in China or by world leaders to create some new world order, or is it just happened, or just being politicized now? Okay, this is a good situation, maybe we should use it to improve our agendas from different parties of different countries. It's really hard. As you mentioned, you can't really prove anything, any of these theories, at least right now. Maybe later things come to light, but as of now, it seems very, very convoluted and complex. So I wouldn't really comment on it at this point personally, because I feel like there's too much cloud of doubt around the matter, especially from the political standpoint. But what is obvious to me is that uh, there seems not to be good amount of world leadership to handle this problem, and it seems like we're in a situation, and there are basically in a crisis situation, and there are no grown-ups to help lead the way forward. I mean, like
Wow.
well, no, seriously. I mean, well, from a very small like scale, some countries are doing well over the board, but overall, globally, it seems like okay, we're just seeing what happens and reacting to these things. I mean, to a degree, we should react, but we also need a comprehensive plan forward, and a plan to because we don't know. Maybe this thing, maybe we don't find a vaccine. Maybe we find it tomorrow. It's just there's no idea.
Well,
We
I'm not
don't
going to
know.
basically, you mentioned maybe we'll never find a vaccine. Well, of course, if it's like flu, as you know, flu had the exact same issue. I
Right.
mean, flu has to be actually changed and updated every probably 5 to 10 years. The same thing
Sure.
probably applies to this one because it's from the same family, basically, right? It's like
Yeah.
the same type. It's respiratory disease. But ultimately, what I am personally concerned about is how much it made such a big deal and a big basically news around the whole concept of
Yeah.
just people are now dying and things are because I myself, I understand marketing, I understand advertising, I understand propaganda, and more importantly, I'm familiar with international business and politics because that's what I do for a living. And in particular, I'm familiar with the Chinese strategy of warfare. And there's a very great book in this regard called The Art of War by Sun Tzu. Actually, I happen to read this book both in Mandarin Chinese and in English. And I understand the policies that are now being currently taking place in the world. And if you are right now listening to us, I recommend you read the book. It's a very short book, by the way, The Art of War by Sun Tzu. And if you read that book once, probably it's going to take probably, I don't know, a couple hours if you're like in English, for example, then you will understand how well a lot of the current changes in politics are now affecting basically the world politics. Now, am I currently accusing the Chinese government of using basically certain war strategies, certain ancient Chinese war strategies in the modern world? Not necessarily. And more importantly, do I feel bad about the fact that this might actually kick Trump out of the White House and bring a very reliable president like Joe Biden, which I'm a supporter of because he obviously is a liberal, a Democrat. He was vice president, of course. Barack Obama, which was another great, one of the greatest probably presidents in the U.S. history. And when you see the direction, I'm happy about the results of it. But then again, there comes the issue of ethics and morality. Is it okay to use certain things like people's lives? And not only that, but because in reality, I don't think that, because that's, again, part of the Chinese philosophy in that they are not so much into killing if the virus itself, if you look at the number of infections, the number of deaths, it was not even the whole number of deaths probably was not a tenth of all the deaths we have in like auto accidents around the year all over the world. But the point is, still it did instill a lot of fear. It did cripple a lot of businesses. It did have a lot of financial damage basically all over the world. And not to mention the psychological health of billions of citizens around the world. Is this an ethical approach to leadership and politics? I'm not sure. But at the same time, I do know that the Chinese culture and the Chinese mannerism when it comes to leadership and politics is not necessarily concerned with ethics so much as concerned with practicality and efficiency. So do I want to accuse the Chinese government of playing a major ploy to somehow get their number one target, which is Donald Trump, out of the White House? Not necessarily. But what I'm saying right now is that this situation seems very fishy, because how could we see that something that initially made people panic so much, that in the end turned out to be nothing more serious than a flu in terms of the actual death rate, when you see all those people who do have the virus but have no symptoms? I mean, how? And people are like, man, this is a new HIV. There's no vaccine for it. Dude, HIV is very different than the coronavirus. HIV means you will lose your immune system, dude. This is just like a flu that you probably all of us have had many times in our lives, basically, right? Now, but with that being said, a lot of the measures taken by certain governments have been very successful. But as you probably already know, I was against a lot of those restrictions from the very get-go, because I knew what was up, and I knew that this is just pure BS designed to hurt basically the young generation, those who are ambitious, because I'm an entrepreneur and I value entrepreneurship. And this was literally an act of war, not against governments, but against entrepreneurship in general, because you put young people who are healthy and asymptomatic in homes, and then you allow 7-year-olds to walk their dogs. This is just really stupid. So what we saw here was clearly lack of good leadership. The way quarantine was handled by leaders, and I'm not just talking about, let's say, the U.S. here. I mean, Trump. I mean, that's a very different story. I mean, we can just talk about that and start laughing all for hours and hours probably. But I'm talking about global leadership, because I'm aware of this, and I'm following the news in various languages in various countries, and I'm aware of how everything has been in different countries. And what I've seen from global leadership, at least from 12 countries that I'm personally in touch with, and about 12 presidents that I follow up with on a daily basis, what I've realized so far is that the global leadership lacks substantially. Yeah. And the archaic approach of quarantining everybody in their homes in the modern world not only went against humanity and human, liberalism, but also was, as you probably have seen, it was actually quite ineffective. And there could have been a lot of better changes, and this situation would have been handled a lot better. But hopefully, as the global leaders learn about the situation, and the situation, gets a little bit better during summer, they will find new ways to handle the problem.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what I meant. I mean, now, exactly, the global leadership, that's what I meant by grown-ups in the room, meaning, well, there's nobody, I don't see that, right? In a global scale. Again, I'm not arguing country by country, province and states by states. I mean, like, very, very globally. And now that there's another conspiracy here that could be made, and that is, well, was it by design, or was it just because of incompetence? Well, I would vote for incompetence right now. That's what I would guess. I don't think.
Well, because that's the default. I mean, we can assume incompetence because that's what is being told in the media by the global leaders. But then again, that itself cannot be proven by us, because in order for it to be assumed to be basically an accident, purely accidental, then there has to be a proof for that, which currently does not exist. So this just happened by itself and was politicized, is as basically could be as baseless as this actually was planned in advance. We cannot say anything for now, but I personally believe that, because I have actually spent many years studying the Chinese culture and the Chinese strategy, I personally implement many of the strategies that I've learned from the Chinese mentality in my own basically life and business. But based on what I think so far, things do not seem to, from my point of view, it just seems very weird for it to happen at such an interesting time where we have so many things happening. We have basically, let's say, the trade agreement for China around literally 1 month before all this happened. Then we have the upcoming election of 2021 and 2020, basically before, hopefully in 2021, we're going to have Joe Biden, hopefully, in the White House. And a few other things that are currently happening. Then, of course, we are seeing at the countries, certain countries that are being allowed to be open. I mean, this just, from my point of view, seems like a lot of people have undergone major terror, psychological damage for the sake of changing the world order. Well, probably there was no other way, or no easier way probably, for certain countries to handle the situation. But from my point of view, as of now, we are seeing things are being developed. We are seeing things are changing rapidly. Although I'm personally not happy about certain new hotspots, I was very disheartened when I realized Brazil is becoming like a new hotspot of the virus very rapidly out of nowhere. And I definitely feel sorry for all the lives that have been lost as a process. I genuinely hope that this was all an accident and is just merely being used as a political tool, because the idea of living in a world where certain world leaders have no concern for people's lives, well, not necessarily lives, because this, of course, was not as deadly, but people's psychological health. Because even though this virus was not very deadly, and it was no deadlier than a flu, it was in the flu range, in terms of the psychological damage that it caused, I'm pretty sure that no similar disease in a recent history had caused as much psychological angst and difficulty for the global citizens as it did in this case with the coronavirus. So this idea of living in a world where people's psychological health and peace of mind can easily be somehow ignored, and fear and panic and propaganda could be used openly and to interfere with the lives of all people who have the rights to their lives, to their bodies, and where you say, everyone stay at home and don't go out. This just simply breaks my heart. And I really hope that in the future leadership that we will have, we will consider a lot of new ways to deal with such problems in the future so that people's lives, rights, happiness, and peace of mind will not be compromised in this manner that was in this crisis.
Yeah, well, that makes a lot of sense. And now we're coming to the end of our time for the show. So for the last bit, where do you see this going? Do you have any guesses or at least hopes of where this? I mean, you mentioned some of it, but what do you think should be done and will be done moving forward?
Very well. Thank you very much. Of course, this was supposed to be a short, basically, update regarding coronavirus for our listeners. And I'm very glad that things are now, for the most part, globally under control. In the U.S., things have been a lot better recently, and things gotten better, and people have opened up certain businesses, although many experts are warning that early openings could lead to second waves and all that. But then again, I personally would take all of these things with a grain of salt, because I just personally assume that a lot of these things are being used to mainly create that fear, not necessarily to protect people's lives. But at the same time, I really hope that people around the world will use this as an opportunity for personal development and growth. I mean, a lot of us, we were in quarantines for months, not of course in all nations, but in many countries around the world. And a lot of people just probably wasted their time during that time, but they could have actually used that time very productively. And I told them at that time that this is going to end, guys. This is going to end. And look at it here right now. So most of the quarantines around the world are now stopping. And because of this, a lot of people are now going back to their normal lives, but they probably have lost a good 1 or 2 months. So for those of us who are not necessarily in power, we can understand that we should not necessarily allow emotions dictate how we feel. So just because everybody is panicking, just because the media is going crazy, that new deadly virus that mutates and kills you like an alien and all those things, we should not necessarily take it very seriously. We have to use our own basically judgment and look at the world with a fresh set of eyes and not be so easily affected by the media that is basically run on fear. That's how they make money. They make you scared and they get your attention because we are wired this way. And that's how they can actually not only make profit, but also propagate certain political agenda all over the world. So with that being said, I'm very happy that things are at least a bit more manageable right now. And I personally am not going to be, if all of this coronavirus thing will ultimately lead to, the leadership in the United States to get back to the Democrats, I personally will be very happy about this matter. And I think that'll be great. But at the same time, I also believe that using people's happiness, peace of mind, or even lives as means to justify political, agenda, it's just not the right way towards leadership. And I really hope that if someday something is proven, we will have the right people brought to justice to discuss all these matters, to know why they did what they did. But for now, I'm glad that things are at least a little bit better overall, and we'll see, hopefully, how things will get better.
All right. Thanks, Dan, for this quick update. Now, hopefully, moving forward, we resume our regular episodes, of course. But for now, thank you for your time.
My pleasure, buddy. And we're going to hopefully wish for our listeners to deal effectively wherever you are in the world. I hope you guys can resolve this problem very soon. And of course, take care of yourself. Practice hygiene, because this is still a virus and it's very contagious. So try to take care of yourself. Follow the health guidelines. That doesn't, just because this is being used politically, doesn't mean that it's not real. And just because it's not basically as deadly as we thought, it doesn't mean that it's not necessarily unhealthy or even dangerous. But of course, at the same time, while you follow up with all the medical precautionary measures, at the same time, allow your peace of mind to return to your life, knowing that things are not as tough or as scary as the media would like us to believe.
Amazing. Thanks. And thank you guys too for joining us again for this update. Hope to see you soon. Stay safe. Take care. Have a good day.